CyberCube has recently published a report looking at enterprise ransomware, predicting what will happen in the future and outlining what is happening now and what it means for the insurance industry. I'm Yvette Essen for CyberCube, and I'm joined by Darren Thomson. Darren is Head of Cybersecurity Strategy for CyberCube. Darren, thanks for your time.
No problem.
Can you explain to me, first of all, why is ransomware such a headache for the insurance community?
Well, I think we've seen in the past few years a few very important trends as they relate to cybercrime generally, but specifically ransomware. First of all, we're seeing a huge uptake in the volume of events over that period of time. So in particular through the COVID lockdown, we saw a huge uptick in the amount of ransomware events that occurred. Secondly, the sophistication of those attacks has also grown exponentially. So the criminals are using much more sophisticated techniques now in order to extract funds, extract finance from their victims. And then on top of all of that, we're seeing a shift really from targets being consumers. So if we go back maybe 4 years, most of the targets of ransomware were actually consumers like you and I. Whereas now, enterprise ransomware is the name of the game, and the criminals and the criminal cartels are targeting the Fortune 500 companies. So they're looking to target those companies in order to extort far more money from those kinds of entities.
Can you explain some of the current trends outlined in the report?
Yeah, so we've definitely seen a massive uptick in the amount of money that's being demanded through ransomware. So if we go back 4 or 5 years, the average ransomware demand sat between $500 and $1,000 per demand. This year, for the first time, we saw a $50 million demand from a ransomware attacker. I'd fully expect to see a $100 million demand in the not too distant future. So that's a huge trend that's very important, obviously, to the insurance community. Secondly, we've seen a trend from pure encryption of data. So the attacker encrypts my data and holds me hostage and refuses to release the decryption key until I pay them money. We've seen a shift from that fairly simple type of attack to attacks that exfiltrate data as well as encrypt it. So now my data is encrypted, but also the criminal is holding a copy of my data in some other storage asset that they own. That gives them the ability actually to extort twice. We call that a double extortion attack. So that's been a very important trend as well.
And what do we expect going forward? What's likely to happen in the future?
Well, my prediction is that we'll see probably the first $100 million ransom demand in the next couple of years or so. So we'll continue to see those demands escalate as criminals pay particular attention to the Fortune 500 type companies. I think we're going to see an increased sophistication in ransomware as well. I mentioned the data exfiltration trend, that will continue. I think we'll also start to see criminals focus their attention on data integrity. So rather than actually encrypting or stealing anything, the threat would be, I'm going to change your data in some way. I'm going to make that data less relevant. That data that your business heavily relies on is now at risk in terms of its integrity. So we're likely to see that. And then on the technical side, we're likely to see adoption of AI and machine learning techniques in this ever more sophisticated attack type. And those attacks are going to be carried out by criminal cartels. So rather than one particular threat actor being responsible for a ransomware attack, we're going to see cartels formed where guns for hire essentially make up a virtual team of criminals, all of which are playing to their own strengths. So those are some of the trends that we would expect to see over the next 2 to 3 years.
Darren, thanks for highlighting those trends. A copy of that report on enterprise ransomware can be found on CyberCube's website, www.cybercube.com. For CyberCube, I'm Yvette Essen.